is one rule that governs life beneath the waves. Stay away from the things that want to kill you. Learn the shape of a shark, learn the sound of a hunting pod, learn what a predator looks like, and keep your distance. And then there is the blue whale, which does not fit that rule at all. It has no teeth worth the name. It hunts nothing larger than your fingernail. It has never been recorded killing a human being. And yet when a blue whale moves through open water, the animals near it tend to give it room, the way traffic gives room to something too large to argue with. So, what is actually going on here? Why does the largest animal that has ever lived on this planet, a creature with no weapons and no appetite for violence, command that kind of space in an ocean full of hunters? Stay with me, because the answer has almost nothing to do with aggression and almost everything to do with physics. Every creature in the sea carries a rough map of danger. Teeth mean danger. Speed means danger. A silhouette closing in from below means danger. That map has been written into ocean life over hundreds of millions of years, and it works beautifully. The blue whale does not appear anywhere on it. It has no hunting teeth. It does not chase large animals. It does not defend a territory. It does not stalk, ambush, or corner anything. By every measure we normally use, it should register as harmless. And yet, it may be the most consequential presence in the open ocean, for reasons that have nothing to do with intent. Its size, its mass, the speed it can reach, the wall of water it shoves aside, the tail it carries behind it. A quick word of honesty before we go further. Nobody has surveyed every animal in the sea to see how each one reacts to a passing blue whale, and any video promising otherwise is guessing. What we do have is solid physics good field observation and a handful of remarkable studies. That is more than enough. So here are the 4 questions ahead. Why does an animal this harmless command this much space? How can something without teeth be dangerous at all? Why is it the only animal ever to reach this scale? And is there anything alive today or long extinct that can bring down a healthy adult? Forget the postcard image. Forget the gentle giant drifting peacefully through blue water like a balloon on a string. That picture is comforting, and it is incomplete. A full-grown blue whale can weigh in the neighborhood of 300,000 pounds. That is roughly 25 African elephants compressed into one body, or a fully loaded jetliner with passengers and fuel. Stretched out, it can run close to 100 feet from snout to tail, and the longest ever measured pushed past 110. Now put that mass in motion. Blue whales cruise slowly most of the time, but when they commit, they can surge past 20 miles an hour, and momentum does not care about intentions. At that weight and that speed, the animal needs no bite, no deliberate ram, no weapon of any kind. Simply traveling from one place to another makes it a hazard to anything in the way. Think about standing on the shoulder of a highway as a loaded semi-truck blows past. You feel the pull. You feel the air shove you sideways. Now replace the air with water, which is around 800 times denser, and replace the truck with 300,000 pounds of muscle and blubber. That is the wake a blue whale leaves behind, and anything small enough caught inside it is no longer steering itself. Feeding does not look gentle either. A blue whale does not glide politely through a cloud of krill, sipping as it goes. What it performs is one of the most extreme athletic movements in the animal kingdom, and biologists call it lunge feeding. Here is how it unfolds. The whale finds a dense swarm of krill drops beneath it and rolls into position. Then it accelerates hard, driving upward into the middle of the swarm. At the last moment, the lower jaw drops open at an enormous angle, and the mouth becomes a scoop moving at speed. The anatomy that makes this work sits under the throat. Long pleats of skin and muscle run from the chin down along the belly, and under pressure they unfold like an accordion. Water floods in, the pleats stretch the throat, balloons outward, and in a matter of seconds, the whale takes on a volume of water that can rival its own body weight. Then the mouth closes, the water is forced back out through curtains of baleen, and everything solid stays behind. For the krill, this is not a chase. There is no shadow growing larger, no window to scatter. There is a pressure change, a wall of water arriving from below, and then a section of the swarm is simply gone. Let me flag this clearly. What follows is a hypothetical. There is no documented case of a person being taken into a blue whale's mouth, and the odds of it happening are close enough to zero that you should treat this as a physics puzzle rather than a warning. With that said, picture a diver hanging beside a krill swarm as a whale makes its run. The current accelerates without warning, visibility collapses, and then you are inside, tumbling in thousands of gallons of seawater with a storm of tiny bodies around you. Here is the reassuring part. You would not be going any further. A blue whale's mouth is cavernous, but its throat is not. The passage to the stomach is commonly described as roughly the width of a grapefruit. This animal spent millions of years perfecting the swallowing of things the size of a paperclip, and it has no anatomy for anything larger. So the likely outcome is almost anticlimactic. The whale registers something wrong, opens up, and the water leaves. You would go with it. Not eaten, not digested, most likely expelled back into open sea, disoriented and possibly hurt by the force of the water alone. Being swallowed was never the interesting danger. The interesting thing about blue whales is what they do with sound. We tend to imagine whale song as something soft and haunting, drifting through the dark like a half-remembered dream. The blue whale's call is not that. Measured underwater, its low-frequency calls have been recorded at levels reaching around 188 decibels. For scale, a jet engine at takeoff measured from the tarmac sits closer to 140. That comparison is not quite fair, and it is worth being straight about why. Underwater sound is measured against a different reference point than sound in air, so the two numbers are not directly interchangeable. Strip away the scaling difference, and the blue whale still lands among the loudest biological sounds ever recorded on this planet. The headline holds. The arithmetic just needs an asterisk. What matters more is the medium. Water is dense, and dense material carries pressure with brutal efficiency. Deep sound is not simply heard, it arrives. Close enough to a calling whale, the experience stops being acoustic and becomes mechanical. Pressure passes through you because your body is mostly water and offers it almost no resistance. Eardrums are vulnerable. Air spaces in the sinuses and lungs are vulnerable. No teeth, no claws, no hostility whatsoever, and proximity still carries a real physical cost. Now, it would be easy to spin that into something cinematic, a sonic weapon, a blast that scrambles predators and clears the water. It makes a great thumbnail, and it is not true. So let us look at what the sound is really doing. The blue whale's call is built for reach, not for damage. Its calls sit at extremely low frequencies, often near or below the bottom edge of human hearing, and low frequencies are the marathon runners of the sound world. They lose energy slowly. They bend around obstacles. Under the right ocean conditions, they can travel for hundreds of miles, threading through deep water layers that carry sound the way a fiber optic cable carries light. That is the point of the volume. Blue whales are scattered thinly across enormous stretches of open sea, A calling animal is not attacking anyone. It is trying to be heard by another blue whale that might be a day's travel away, and it is broadcasting across a vast, mostly empty room. There is a real acoustic phenomenon worth knowing here, and it is called masking. When loud sound floods a frequency band, quieter signals in that band get buried, and animals relying on those signals lose information. But blue whale calls sit far below the high-frequency range that dolphins and sperm whales use to echolocate, so the overlap is limited. And the dominant source of masking in the modern ocean is not whales at all. It is us. Hold on to that thought, because we will come back to it. So the blue whale's voice is not a weapon. It is a signal built to cross an ocean, and that is arguably more impressive. On paper, the blue whale looks like an easy target. No claws, no fighting teeth, limited agility, no interest in fighting back. Any decent predator should be able to take a piece and leave. So picture a great white shark trying. It brings the tools that normally work: ambush from below, explosive acceleration, and a jaw of serrated teeth built to open a wound and let blood loss finish the job. Then it meets the barrier. A great white's teeth measure a couple of inches. A blue whale's blubber runs thick, and in places on a well-fed animal, it can approach a foot. It is not soft fat either. It is dense and fibrous, layered with collagen, and it resists cutting far better than muscle does. To be accurate, sharks absolutely do bite large whales. Bite scars turn up on living animals, and sharks feed enthusiastically on whale carcasses, and an injured or dying whale can and does draw them in. What is hard is the thing that matters. On a healthy adult, a single bite is very unlikely to reach an artery, an organ, or anything else that would decide the outcome. The shark spends enormous energy and comes away with a mouthful of tissue that means nothing to an animal this size. And it has now placed itself within reach of the one thing the whale does have. The tail of a blue whale spans up to about 25 feet across. Park two cars side by side in a garage, and you have the width of a single fluke. That tail is not a rudder. It is driven by the caudal peduncle, the thick, muscular stalk joining body to fluke, and it is one of the most powerful blocks of muscle on Earth. Its job is to accelerate 300,000 pounds from a standstill over and over through water that resists every inch. Now consider what that equipment does when something gets too close. The whale needs no strategy. It does not turn and pursue. It does not corner anyone. It swings. We should be careful here, because this is where these videos usually oversell. There is no confirmed footage of a blue whale killing a shark with one blow, and anyone claiming otherwise is filling a gap with drama. What we do have is well documented. Large whales use their flukes defensively, and they do it hard. In the orca attacks we are about to discuss, researchers specifically recorded a blue whale slapping and swiping its tail at its attackers. Humpbacks have injured and driven off orcas the same way. Work out the physics of that much mass moving that fast, and the conclusion is uncomfortable for anything in the ark. You do not need a confirmed kill to understand why an experienced predator keeps its distance from the back end. The cost of one bad approach is potentially everything, and the reward is a scrap of blubber. For decades, one question sat unresolved. Orcas are the most sophisticated hunters in the sea, and they were known to attack blue whales. But could they actually finish one? Nobody had seen it. Then off Bremer Bay in Western Australia they did. In a study published in the journal Marine Mammal Science, researchers documented 3 successful hunts. In April of 2019, orcas killed a blue whale calf. In March of 2021, they killed a juvenile after a chase that ran roughly an hour and a half, with the whole encounter lasting close to 3 hours. And in March of 2019, they killed an adult. an apparently healthy animal estimated at somewhere between 60 and 70 feet long. Let me correct something you may have heard, including from me if you watched an earlier version of this idea. The number often repeated is 50 to 70 orcas doing the attacking, and that is not what happened. The hunting group was around 12 to 14 animals. Roughly 50 gathered afterward once the whale was dead to share the carcass. Big difference, and worth getting right. Their method worked around the blubber problem rather than through it. Adult females led. The pod tore at fins and head rammed the flank in coordinated passes and worked to force the whale underwater and away from air. They went for the tongue, which on a blue whale outweighs an elephant, and the whole time they were dodging a fluke that could end any one of them. So the honest answer is not that adults are invulnerable. It is that a coordinated pod of the ocean's best hunters can do it at real risk over hours, and that in all of recorded science we have watched it succeed exactly once against an adult. Which brings us to the question everyone asks, and I want to be upfront that this next part is speculation. Megalodon and the modern blue whale never shared an ocean. Nothing here is a finding, it is a thought experiment built on what the fossil record allows. The case for Megalodon is real. It was enormous with wide jaws and teeth far larger than any shark carries today, and its whole body plan points toward hunting large marine mammals. Ancient whale bones carry scars that match those teeth. But scale matters. Recent estimates put a typical Megalodon somewhere around 50 feet, with debate about the upper end still very much open. A blue whale runs close to 100 feet and carries several times the mass. The whales Megalodon actually hunted were considerably smaller than the giant that evolved later. A Megalodon bite would do genuine damage, driving far deeper than any modern shark could manage, and removing a serious quantity of flesh. But it runs into the same structural problem the great white does, only at a larger scale. It cannot get its jaws around anything decisive. Reaching organs through that much blubber and muscle is a slow proposition, and slow means staying close, and staying close means staying inside the arc of the tail. So the honest verdict is not a clean win for either side. It is that even the most formidable shark that ever lived would have found an adult blue whale a difficult and expensive target. Anyone telling you they know the outcome is selling you a story. Nature usually settles these matters through escalation. The hunter gets faster, so the hunted gets better at hiding. The hunter grows sharper teeth, so the hunted grows thicker hide. Round after round, both sides paying an ever higher price to stay in the game. Biologists call it an evolutionary arms race, and nearly every species is stuck inside one. The ancestors of the blue whale stepped out of it. They developed no venom, no spines, no camouflage, no blistering speed, no clever tricks for confusing an attacker. They did something simpler and far stranger. They kept getting bigger. The ocean handed them the conditions. Krill exist in staggering abundance, concentrating into dense clouds that very few large animals bothered to exploit. Lunge feeding let whales harvest that resource in enormous single mouthfuls, and water carries weight in a way land never could, lifting the skeletal ceiling that caps every land animal. So generation by generation, the numbers climbed. And somewhere along the way, the whales crossed a line. Too large to bite around, too thick to reach through, too costly to attack, and too dangerous to stay near. They never became the fiercest thing in the sea. They grew until the usual rules of predation mostly stopped applying to them. So why stop at 100 feet? Why not 150? Why not 200? Part of the answer sits in the chest. A blue whale's heart is roughly the size of a bumper car and weighs in the range of 400 pounds, pushing blood through nearly 100 feet of body. The main artery leaving it is wide enough to fit a human head. Researchers who managed to attach a heart monitor to a wild blue whale found something extraordinary. During deep foraging dives, including the lunges themselves, the heart slowed to as few as 2 beats per minute. 2. The spike came afterward at the surface when the animal was recovering and reloading oxygen. That was when the rate climbed to around 37. And 37 appears to be near the mechanical limit for a heart that size. The tissue cannot cycle faster. That matters because a larger whale would need to move more oxygen through more muscle while recovering on the same kind of surface interval using a pump already at its ceiling. But it would be dishonest to call the heart the whole story, because it is not. Feeding energetics matter just as much. Every lunge costs an enormous amount of energy, and it only pays off if the krill patch is dense enough. Scale up the body, and the cost per lunge climbs faster than the mouthful does, so the whale becomes hostage to finding richer and richer patches that may simply not exist. Add to that the demands of raising a calf, the difficulty of shedding heat from that much muscle, and the plain limits of how much food an ocean can supply. The blue whale did not stop growing because a predator stopped it. It stopped where several different constraints converged, and it has been sitting at that intersection ever since. We look at blue whales from boats and drones, framed neatly seen whole from a safe distance. That view makes it a very large animal and nothing more. Fish do not have that view. Most read their surroundings through the lateral line, a row of pressure sensors along the flank that detects vibration and movement in the water. An ordinary animal passing by registers as a small local disturbance with an edge to it, something you can point at. An approaching blue whale would not register that way. Water is displaced across an enormous front. Pressure shifts over a wide area at once. To a sensory system built for reading edges, there may not be an object there at all, just the water itself starting to move. Whether that reads as fear or simply as a signal too large to interpret, we genuinely do not know. What we can say is that it is unlike anything else in the sea. And that is why the animal refuses to fit either box we build for it. It is no simple, gentle giant. Not when it can erase a swarm of millions in seconds and swing a fluke that no predator wants to test. But it is no monster either, because it hunts nothing large, threatens nobody deliberately, and lives on creatures the size of a paperclip. Which leaves one last thing to say, and it changes the whole picture. For all the predators we have discussed, none of them ever came close to threatening this species. We did. Industrial whaling in the 20th century killed roughly 350,000 blue whales in the southern hemisphere alone, cutting some populations by more than 90%. Today, after decades of protection, the global population is estimated only in the low tens of thousands. They are still struck by ships, still tangled in gear, still swimming through an ocean where the low-frequency noise from shipping sits squarely on top of the frequencies they use to find each other. The one voice, built to cross an ocean, now has to compete with our engines. The largest animal that has ever lived spent millions of years becoming untouchable and then met the one thing its size could not solve. If that reframed how you see them, tell me in the comments which ocean giant you want explored next. Subscribe for more stories from the deep and turn on notifications because there is a great deal more down there worth understanding.